Hello, my name is Robert Lawless, and today's lesson is going to be on genetically modified organisms. So, some key terms to know. Genetic modification, which is the process of modifying an organism by adding new genetic material or DNA. It's also called genetic engineering or genetic manipulation. So, the goal of genetic modification is introducing new traits that are not currently present in that organism, including insect resistance, hardiness, or modified nutrient content. Genetically modified organisms are the plants, animals, and other organisms that contain altered genetic material, and they are known as GMOs. Biotechnology, this term refers to the use of living organisms to solve problems or develop new products. Genetic modification is one example of biotechnology. Vaccinations and antibiotics were also created via biotechnology. GMOs can be raw ingredients like corn, canola, soybeans, or they can be used as ingredients in prepared foods like sweeteners, canola oil, soups, cereals, and snack foods. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration notes that foods made from genetically engineered plants must meet the same requirements, including safety requirements, as foods from traditionally bred plants. Another term to know is breeding. Breeding combines genetic material from two species that are genetically compatible. So breeding can happen naturally, for example, with two farm dogs meeting behind the barn, or bees carrying pollen from one flower to another. Also, this could happen through deliberate pairing of animal species or plant varieties, meaning like crossing a mildew-resistant tomato with a high-yield variety in a lab to create a new line with desirable traits from each plant. So, some more key terms that I think that everybody should know if you are studying this topic. So, hybrid. Hybrid are the plants, animals, or other organisms created through controlled breeding, and they are known as hybrids. So, in other words, breeding is the process of combining genetic material, and a hybrid is the result. So, another term to know is organic. In agriculture, organic is a term used to describe plant and animal products that were produced without synthetic products like pesticides and antibiotics. Organic products do not contain genetically modified ingredients, but hybrids can be considered organic. Selective breeding is the breeding of animals or plants that have desirable characteristics. Crossbreeding is reproduction between two different species to create a new one. And gene transfer is the insertion of one organism's genetic material in the form of DNA into another organism. So this here is basically a brief overview of what we're going to talk about next, and just basically a brief overview of the slideshow and what genetically modified organisms are, what it connects to, and then here are some key points. What are the environmental and economic impacts of genetically modified crops, and what are the impacts of genetically modified crops on food security? So what are genetically modified organisms? So, genetically modified organisms are organisms whose genome has been engineered in the laboratory in order to favor the expression of desired physiological traits or generation of desired biological products. So here's just, a picture of certain foods and crops that are genetically modified. So, GMOs are produced through genetic technologies that have become a part of everyday life. It has entered society through agriculture, medicine, research, and environmental management. However, while GMOs have benefited through human society in many ways, there are still some disadvantages. So, the GMOs and the topic of GMOs is a very controversial topic in many parts of the world. So, what's the issue with GMOs? So, here are some human health concerns. Because genetically engineering in foods is a relatively new practice, little is known about the long-term effects and safety. Some people believe that GMO foods have more potential to trigger allergic reactions. This is because they may contain genes from an allergen. Some researchers believe that eating GMO foods can contribute to the development of cancer. They argue that because the disease is caused by mutations in the DNA, it is dangerous to introduce new genes into the body. But with this being said, there's still studies and developmental studies going on, and as of now, I think GMOs, in my opinion, are okay, but I think that people should be aware when GMOs are in their supermarkets. There should be more clear labels, and people should just know, because as of right now, there are some people that are totally against this. So what's the issues with GMOs continued? This is the environmental concerns. So some environmental concerns consist of that they threaten crop diversity, they pose as a threat to the insects that are important to the ecosystem, they would make plants leave unwanted residual effects that will remain in the soil for a long period of time, and outcrossing, which is the unintentional breeding of a domestic crop with the related plant. A major environmental concern associated with GM crops is their potential to create new weeds that will outcross with wild relatives or simply, in the wild themselves. So how to resolve these issues? I would say adding new laws that explicitly allows people to know if their food is genetically modified, maybe imposing stricter regulations on how these foods are produced, and ensuring safety and quality are a number one priority. So as of now, there really are no laws mandating the labeling of genetically modified crops. There are, however, an estimated 30,000 different products that are considered modified sitting on the grocery store shelves. So unless a product is certified organic, then it may contain genetically modified foods. And this slide here is a great chart which, shows some economic and political factors. And this chart basically summarizes everything discussed, and it's also a great note sheet that can be used in the future. Thank you guys for listening.